Little baby spider running up there. That's the problem with these toys, they get spider infested. In fact, this thing is infested with spiders. I could just see a spider here. You see it there? Let's sort it out. Good night, sister. Ain't gonna survive that, I can guarantee ya. No way. Poor old Thomas, wow, he isn't looking as cheery as he normally does. Well, hello, I've got noises coming from up the road again, so I'm going to have to talk very loudly in this video. This is Thomas Merchandise Collecting Episode 3. Oh my goodness me, what's up here? Lots of people said to me that Journey Beyond Sodor would not come out on DVD. They said it was just a free video on YouTube. Well, hang on a second, this sort of thing forms the merchandise for Thomas and Friends. I'm pretty sure they're always going to release this on DVD and to show you that it's not a fraud. Look at that! What's that in there? It looks like a DVD to me. So as always, you have to be very careful with what's said online, and I will just gently push that aside. Okay, this here is a very, very impressive bit of gear. It's a Thomas activity table made by the VTech company. This quite stunning activity table came to me via the charity shop when it was still in operation. At the time of making the beginning of this video, sadly it is gone. If I turn this beast on, it starts to make all sorts of noises. And it will just keep making more and more noises. The Thomas on this can turn around, and as you turn it around, you get different things said. I do believe that this here used to power Thomas, but I think that feature no longer works.
We have to deliver the cargo on time.
I can't see him delivering anything there. I can see this toy is sun affected, and maybe if I take a look at the fat controller here and I just shift it sideways, you can see what the original colour was. It's a pretty awesome sort of activity table. I've looked at this many times down in my garage. There's a little storybook there, very simplistic. Well, that's what children like, very young children. There's bits here that if you've got some Play-Doh, you can do things like this, because I know how children play. Look at this here. Yeah, a bit of a steam team in Play-Doh there. There's a clocky sort of thing there, and if I keep turning around, there's more and more things to whack and bash if you want, because that's what children do all the time. Especially that button there. Emergency, emergency. He's gone mad. And as I found out with playing with this toy, the messages behind these buttons changes.
We've arrived at the ramp.
As you play with different modes on this toy. It's actually quite an addictive little toy to play with. It's just really sad that the Thomas here doesn't move, and I did a bit of investigation online about this toy to understand more about this. And with the background noise taking over, it's a pretty awesome Thomas. It's got a white running board there. It's actually relief detailing. The red line is actually raised, so when I put my finger over this, I can get a shape. And probably the best example of that is if I get some more Play-Doh in here and just squash it against Thomas, like this, you'll see that it'll make the shape of Thomas in there. You can see the relief that's down the side. There's a nice look at Thomas's face there. Notice he's looking down a bit, probably looking at the letters that he travels across. It's giving away the era of this Thomas, possibly. But it's really sad that this has been sun affected. That's a picture of the island of Sodor there. And maybe I'll just turn it off for a sec and we'll venture underneath here, because it took me some time to understand exactly the era of this toy and to try and work out the licensing info of it. What's really cool about this activity table is you can get rid of these legs. Why stop at one? Because there are two to do. So there it is there, is something that you could play in your lap or just down on the deck, but it was underneath where I really started to get bamboozled about the era of this toy. There are two reeds under this toy. There's something that I can't see. That's licensing info, which had me fried. And also I'm not really seeing a date poking out at me. Maybe that 0775 is a clue to the age of this toy. Yeah, well, thank goodness for online, and in a strangest sort of way, you know what sort of killed off these toys, and it's very simple to show, things like this. Tablets and screens like that are really slammed into the market of these toys. Hopped onto Amazon and I found the toy, but it says currently unavailable. And to understand more about this control here and this little Thomas here, well, I found a user manual online. Yes, and as always, it's one of these dreaded sites set up with maximum ads, and it was by drilling into this, I started to learn lots about this toy if I get the right page. And in fact, the user manual shows all sorts of features that this little toy has got, but the one I want to really learn about is if the Thomas moves. I think this is the one here, moves with the joystick. And by reading this here, it says move the joystick up or down to drive the engine. Well, mine doesn't do that. And the other great query about this toy is its era. There it is there. It's licensed to 2007. Thank goodness for things like this online. I learned a lot about this toy by looking at that user manual. Now, what should I do with this toy? Should I keep it? Is it really worth keeping, or is it too far gone for the fact it's so badly faded? Hey, the part I do like about this toy is this little Thomas, because I'm a Thomas collector and I don't think I've got anything like that. Now, the scale of this Thomas, and I think this is important to see, there's a Thomas & Friends Adventures toy, which used to be Take and Play, and before that Take Along. There's the scale of one to the other. And I'm sure if this Thomas powered itself, you would be coming along and maybe putting your trains in there. And as Thomas powered along, you could basically, you know, give the other train a bit of a biffo along the way. Like that. There you go. Thomas has got the tracks all to himself again. Well, I'll turn it back on. Something about keypads, isn't it?
1658.
Oh, there goes my Visa card pin. Oh, you didn't say that, boys and girls. Yeah, maybe by knocking it around, Thomas has come to life.
Green light. Green means go.
Well, Thomas isn't going, and I wish he would. Yeah.
Hurry, Thomas.
If this
deliver the
playset was
cargo
working,
on
let me just
time.
turn it back off again. If this playset was working, I think I would definitely keep it. I think really what I'm interested in is the Thomas, keeping this Thomas here. As for keeping the rest of this playset here, this table, I'll be honest here, I think it's too far gone. And I say that because with something like this, condition is everything. It's so sun-faded and affected all over this place. You've seen what the real colours were when I shifted to the side like that. If it was in really Mickey Mouse condition and the Thomas spun around as you should, hey, I would no qualm keeping this as one whole unit. I'm actually sort of curious to take a look what's going on inside this toy, so I'll quickly zip it open here and we'll see how this thing works. Maybe I can get Thomas moving. Okay, I think that was the last one there, I hope, and doing this single-handedly, which is going to be very dangerous. I hope I've got them all. Ooh, yeah, we'll have a sneak peek inside here. Wow. Well, I dare say this wouldn't have been a cheap toy. Let me just pull that aside there, because I can see the battery connections are still there. Okay. Well, I'm not an electronics expert, but this has got a couple of circuit boards in here, some sort of old-fashioned electronics as well. Let me just turn it on. I think the switch is here somewhere. Okay, this is the underneath of the thing that makes Thomas work. And you can see
Green.
that there.
Slow down, Thomas.
What do they call it? Is it a potentiometer?
Hurry, Thomas.
That thing
We
there?
have to deliver the cargo on
But
time.
I can't see Thomas moving. So maybe I've got to pull this down a little bit further to see what's going on in here. But before I pull it apart any further, this is that area which looks like it just engages the forwards and backwards of Thomas. Maybe this is just a bit dirty. Put it this way, it's showing its sign of age. Maybe if I give this a bit of a scuff up, we might get Thomas moving. I see it's got a bit of dirt on it. The toy's turned off because it doesn't automatically shut off. I said potentiometer, it's just like a, what would you call it, like a arcing switch would be more like it. Yes, this might be the problem here because it is dirty. Well, the sad news is that cleanup has made no change to making Thomas move. So I will come in and pull this down. Thank goodness for these sorts of screwdrivers, hey? What did we do before these? I've got a whole ton of screws out there. I'm just going to get this ribbon cable loose. Look how much there is there. And I'll just get rid of this screw here as well. Well, that's Thomas Mystery for you. It's like a ring. And it's got ribbon cable wrapped around it. What would that be for? Oh, I don't know. Some electronics genius will know that one. Well, somehow it's still working. Yeah, I can't get the motor thing to work. Oh, let me flip this over and just see what's going on. Very carefully, of course. Oh, okay. Starting to see how this works now. Well, this starts to reveal more and more of a bit of a Thomas mystery. This would be the thing here that if you select different things by pins rolling on top of this, you're going to get different things chatting back to the computer. I can't see a motor anywhere. Maybe I've got to pull this off here to see what's going on. I noticed these pins here would actually be riding on this section here, okay? And there is this little, like, O-ring thingo here, which sort of came flying out when I pulled it apart. It's starting to feel like this little activity table's going past the point of no return. Maybe undoing that's going to reveal something special. Nah, that's really weird. Yeah, well, I think in the end all I really want out of this is that Thomas there. And after removing 3 more screws, well, I've freed Thomas away from that activity table, and that's going to make for a very unusual Thomas for my huge Thomas collection. Well, this toy, it's got me it's hauling me in, because I'm a bit curious as to what features it had versus it didn't have. I think this piece here went there, and yeah, that feels like the feeling it had before. And as I turn that round, those little prongs connect to different things on this ring here, but I can't see how this thing powered. I'm sure the constructions read that this thing powered. Let me just turn this off because it's highly annoying. Maybe there's another version of this which powered around when you hit this here, or maybe there is just something I don't understand. I'm sure my audience will know more about it than me. Well, that was about how not to fix things with Leo Kim Video, wasn't it? Maybe I've just destroyed what would be a very collectible bit of gear. It's probably worth a ton of money. But maybe think of it like this. Well, now there's one less on the planet. Well, the ones which are surviving are worth even more. Well, just on things that I keep and don't keep and things that I should throw away, I stupidly kept these chocolate assortments, like Christmassy sort of things, Thomas and Friends. This was best before 2014. This was best before 2015. And if we open these up, ooh, man, we're going to see a bit of a Thomas and Friends nightmare evolve in front of us. I mean, look at that. Look what's going on with that chocolate there. Yuck! I'll just open up the 2015 one as well. Maybe that's why this stuff has a best before date. Oh, yep, it's another horror story coming out of here. Oh, what has gone on there? That's really, really scary. Now, just on these Thomas & Friends chocolates, they are extremely high in sugar. Okay, carbohydrate sugar. You can see the number there. Now, I always thought that foods which were high in sugar and basically just basically a sugar hit, didn't degrade and fall down like I'm seeing here. Now, I'll put gloves on because I've got no idea what's going on there. I know there'll be some food people out there who know what they're looking at here, and they can say, oh, well, this has happened. Maybe some bugs have got into this. It just feels terrible as well. That's why I've got some gloves on. This one here looks even worse. This is the... I mean, look at that. That's really, really eerie, isn't it? It's just fallen apart. That's the Fat Controller one. It's just going to squish it up here. Wow. Really strange. I've got some old Kinder Surprise eggs. Maybe I should go and unwrap a few of them in some other video and see what's going on in there. But wow, yeah, you know, things that you keep and things that you throw away, well, that's a great example of stuff that I'm throwing away. And what I should have done is thrown it away years ago. After a good little tidy up there, this next one's a bit of a mystery item. So often something would come from the charity shop like this, and I have to just carefully unwrap this. I dare say it is something fragile. Ooh, is it going to be an early thing or a later thing? Well, I can see by those faces there, I think we're dealing with something which is fairly fresh, hey? Yes, it's a coffee mug, and looking at the faces there, they look like what I classify as sort of modern rendering of these characters. Also, the way that the detailing has been done in this mug is another indicator, and if I clock around here, I might see a date somewhere. There it is there, 2015. This item here, I wouldn't classify it as anything special, I'll be honest here. I would assume that this has come in some sort of Easter pack, or maybe something at Christmas time. Maybe my audience knows all about it. Well, the next item we're going to take a look at, ooh, it's a bit of an oldie. Do you know the era of these? Or maybe there was a number of eras. It's a 24-piece floor puzzle. The box is sort of shaped like Thomas. It's a shame this boxing has had so much Thomas love, because I can see there's a fair bit of damage, especially in the area at the back of Thomas where he's been opened and closed all the time to play with, hey? It's got great big puzzle pieces in there. Ooh, and a few other things dropping out as well. And I can only assume that puzzle makes that picture right there. Looking underneath this, it tells me it's a licensed item to 2002, made by Ravensburger. I hope I'm saying it there. Also, it's made in the Czech Republic. I'm just going to put this together, but I can already see there's some problems and some bits damaged, so yes. Okay, after extinguishing some of my brain cells, I have got this together. It has got an old, earlier Thomas & Friends charm in a sense. Thomas looks fantastic there. So does Percy, but parts of this jigsaw puzzle are damaged. You can see there that part of the laminate at the front's gone. Also, that key area there is totally missing from Harold. Cranky's up there as well, and there's also James pulling a troublesome truck, looking very, very happy. But at least when I see things like this going on, at least this jigsaw puzzle shows it's had signs of what I call Thomas love. There we are, looking at the jigsaw puzzle. I've got my camera up in the air, looking down. It's nice and large. It would look impressive in a frame up on a wall. And I was looking around on this jigsaw puzzle because often there is more copyright information and dates, and I found it down in this piece here. You have to look very, very carefully. It says Ghislaine Thomas Limited, 2001. Part of me is thinking, well, how special is this? How rare is this item? You know what, I don't think it's that special. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure the audience will tell me. I did take a look online at what these were selling for, and sure, they're there, but I think there's actually a couple of different versions of this puzzle. I found one on eBay. There's no pictures there. It's a 2002 one. It sold for $9, but that listing has ended. I found one on Amazon. It's a different picture it makes up. It's got the funky box. I don't know what year it is. It says $11.30, and for me, plus $12.89 shipping. So it basically doubles the cost. So really, with something like this, it comes down to condition. This has to be in absolutely pristine condition, in particular the box. And I'll be quite honest here, I don't think there's anything that special about this item here. Maybe I'm totally wrong, maybe you can tell me. But sadly, if it needs to be in really Mickey Mouse condition for me to have any sort of value in this. I've got a couple of quickies here. These were from the charity shop. They were purchased in a store in Australia called Spotlight. It's like a haberdashery shop. It's got the old cloud there. Look at this. So maybe this is something from a bit of a bygone era. It's an iron-on patch is the best way of saying it. That's James there. I've got another one to show you as well. That there, and in very, very small print. I'm not going to go in on it, but it says 1999 there. Okay, just going through here. It's like the old... Actually, it reminds me of the way Ertl's cards were done. It's the same sort of typeface. And down here, curiously, it says designed in Australia, made in China. So I can only assume this has possibly been sitting in a Spotlight store down the back, tucked away somewhere, or in someone's house somewhere. Yes, very nice. If only I had Thomas. The other character I've got, I better show you the other character, is Percy, the Great Agent. Let me do a Percy voice. Once again, it's in very good condition. You can see how much there was in a day. Yes, hey. I wonder who's got these, and I wonder who's still got this sort of thing, and it's packaging to me. This is worthwhile just keeping as it is. Very much an insight into a bygone Thomas era. Well, let me explain to you a little bit of a Thomas & Friends predicament I've got brewing here. The charity shop, when it was up and running, collected lots and lots of Thomas & Friends merchandise. That's an older sort of puzzle there. Oh, that's the same company as the one I showed in this video, but that would be very nice, and the box is in excellent condition. And if I dig through here, there is so much stuff. I've got, okay, that tub there. I've got this tub here, all packed with stuff, that one there. These boxes here, count the boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and another one here, 5. Stacked on top of the boxes, it just keeps going and going and going. There is all sorts of stuff here, things that you wouldn't believe. Bags caught up between my spiral of Trackmaster Tower stuff there. You know, up here, more and more stuff. If I move stuff around, you just keep seeing more and more Thomas merch. I think what I need to do is to connect with someone who's into this stuff. I don't think I need to collect this stuff. As I go through these boxes one by one, I think I could do like 50 videos of just Thomas merchandise. I don't think we're ever going to get there, but I'm sure there'll be someone in Sydney. I don't want to transport it any further than Sydney. Someone in my hometown who would love this stuff when I'm done with it. And one of the most common items that was coming from the charity shop was bags. Thomas & Friends bags. Mind you, I think, if I look carefully here, there's Brewster. There's a Chuckington bag in there. Well, that's a rare treat, isn't it? But the Thomas & Friends merchandise just goes on and on and on. It's actually quite amazing. The next part of this video was shot months and months ago, and well, back then our grass looked very different. What you're looking at down there is grass that hasn't had decent rain for about 7 months. We've had this incredibly dry winter and early spring. It's been totally awesome weather if you like catching flies. And by the looks of it, it's been perfect conditions for redback spiders to lay egg sacs. And so, like a little bit of a magic trick, we'll go back in time when things were a little bit greener. Well, a pile of Thomas and Friends paraphernalia is what we're going to take a quick look over next. There's Bluebell having an inspection. Yes, a real mixed bag of stuff, but the first item we'll take a look at is this poster. Well, I found this poster at a friend of mine's garage sale in the suburb where I live in Sydney. It was $10. And maybe the best value in that there is the poster frame. Mind you, it has pictures here of when Thomas and Friends was done in model version. They look spectacular, actually. Maybe it's worth keeping. Yeah, nice pictures indeed. On closer inspection, the poster is actually a fair bit crinkled up. It is damaged slightly. And when it comes to collecting posters and keeping their value, the posters have got to be in Mickey Mouse condition. Yeah, looking over this, very much a trip back in time, isn't it? In the way Thomas and Friends used to look when it was done as a model series. I dare say there's a lot of good memories for many of my viewers looking at the pictures on this poster. What is it with cats and things you put down on the ground? They're always inquisitive. I've got to find the next item to take a look at. Maybe this one here. Everything's got a story attached to it. Rightio, this one here I found at the garage sale, and as we get closer you'll see how much I paid for it. $30 for this, hey? Maybe I paid too much, maybe I'm buying the frame. Sadly the artwork doesn't have the brilliance that I'd expect from it. I dare say it has been sun faded. It's a curious one. There's Thomas with Mavis up on the bridge. You've got the Fat Controller with a set of binoculars there looking out over the railway. You've got James down there going through a small viaduct. If I go up here, there's another bridge there with Duck doing something over the back there, and I'll zoom in a touch. There you can see Gordon there, coming up through there. There is Harold there, and then Bertie is just there. I hope you can see Bertie right there. It has a feeling of a trip back in time and the way Thomas and Friends was rendered in artwork, but I'm not sure of its age. I do notice down by the Fat Controller's foot on the piece of timber there, it looks like the artist's signature there. I'm a bit curious to see how this has been done, whether it's printed on timber or it's a poster. Well, I don't think it's been printed on timber. It looks like a poster that has been stuck onto some horrible board. It's not precious to me, and I'll explain why, because really it has been affected by a lot of sun, and now that I've taken out a frame I can see some of the vibrance that this picture used to have. Just where my fingers ache and see how vibrant it used to be. There would have been a time when Mavis's yellow striping would have been nice and vibrant, and Thomas would have looked spectacular. These are the next two items we'll take a look at. They're basically posters that have been printed on board. I paid $5 for this at a local school fair. It sat there all day long. In the end, I was the one who picked this up. I watched many people look at this at the school fair, but I think the thing that's troubling this picture here, it is heavily sun affected. Mind you, it is a totally epic scene. Down the bottom corner, that's the artist. That looks like the one from the other picture, doesn't it? And the format's sort of similar to the one with the Fat Controller with the binoculars. There's Terence there going up here. Is that Daisy? I hope I'm right there. I know you can correct me if I'm wrong. Thomas there, pulling Annie and Clarabelle. Going up to the back scene here, and there's Bill and Ben, whichever one it is. We've got Toby and Henrietta there. A bit of a castle scene going on there, and we've got Harold flying nice and high. It's a lovely picture. It's so sad that it's sun affected and faded away. It would have looked amazing when it was brand new with those nice vibrant colours. Now the funny thing to this picture here, plus the next one we're going to take a look at, I can't see any licensing info on these. I remember sort of seeing these for sale in, let's say, the dark side markets like many years ago. Are these pictures dark side? What do you know about these styles of prints? And now move to the next one and you'll start to see how vibrant in colour they look when they haven't been affected by sun. I can see that same signature on this print, and it's a very similar format, almost recurring theme of following the picture to the background and seeing multiple Thomas and Friends characters. In the foreground there's a little boy and a girl and a dog, and there's Toby going under a viaduct there. We go up to a bridge and we see Annie, we don't see Clarabelle. Then we see Thomas riding proudly next to Duck there. Looks spectacular, doesn't it? We go up here. It's funny, Bill and Ben featuring again. And over on the back viaduct there, yes, that's James. Yeah, it's funny. They could have almost squeezed another character in here, like Devious Diesel. From memory, this one came through the charity shop. I didn't pay too much for it, but it does have a problem. It's nice and vibrant in colour, but when I turn it round, you'll see why I don't like these prints that are done on this cheap timber. Well, this is the back of this print. I think this type of timber, it's called MDF. It's like a Phaco timber. It's covered in mould. And what's worse is it has been water affected. It's been left on the floor, water's got it into this, and what happens then, there's no strength in this. In fact, it's worth nothing because the whole bottom of that picture has been water affected. Now, the worst part here is, apart from that deadly mold, is that the picture is actually bonded to the MDF and there's no way of separating the two, so basically that's worthless. And the sad fact is, this picture here, which looks nice, but it's destroyed on the back, and that one there, well, they're basically worth nothing. Next one's another piece of art, almost from a bygone era. I'm not sure whether I've showed this one before, so I'll go through this one really fast. Got the older style Thomas and Friends logo there. It's got Bertie the Bus there. Is it Terrence Attraction Engine? I hope I'm right there. If I'm wrong, you'll be screaming at me. And of course, there's Thomas. Now, this one, I will take it out of this frame because there is licensing info at the bottom of the print. I can see by the edges it has been sun affected. It's more vibrant on the edges where it was shadowed by the frame. And down here, a couple of reads actually to look at. There's a poster number there. It says Thomas the Tank Engine, going across here, distributed by blah, 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 Melbourne, Australia. And then there is the copyright thing there. Ooh, 1995. One thing I can tell you is 1995 was actually a long time ago, and it's sad when you say it like that. It's a nice piece, but it's a poster that has been adhered to MDF, so I don't quite like that. I don't like that at all. And maybe, just maybe, this one here is the oldest of the Thomas and Friends prints that we've seen in this video. Ooh, this next item, I know this item very well. This was my son's Thomas and Friends scooter. I think I picked it up for like 20 bucks at Aldi in Australia. It's had a ton of play. Bits have been broken off. It's sun affected, as you see with a lot of these styles of toys. It's got a little bit of art on there as well. It was a cheap and cheerful Thomas and Friends stuff that you saw getting about it, because you see the wheels are chewed out a bit. If I go up this section here, you can see the artwork on there. It used to have like a banner here, which always, they get broken off, don't they? They don't last very long. It had like a Thomas and Friends logo, and that's the handlebars there. Just losing the sun for a bit, it'll come back. There's a bit of artwork there. You can see what a rough time it's had, but what I didn't like about this, when we left it out in the garden, and you know what my place is like, what we found was the spiders love to live up inside here. And if you look carefully down there, you can see there's certainly been spider activity. Very much the sort of cheap and cheerful franchise scooter that you see about these days. You saw them in multiple different franchises, being Lightning McQueen, Dora the Explorer. As far as I'm concerned, that can go on the rubbish pile. And that lets me bring up another scooter that I purchased at the charity shop for $2. This is a very nice model. This scooter's got the panel that my son's used to have. There would have been artwork there. The son's playing havoc with me at the moment. It's popping in and out. This is a very ritzy scooter versus my son's one. And when we track past the beautiful artwork there's something on the back here which is quite surprising. What's that there? It's got a switch on and off here. It's got a thing there. And maybe when I flip it over, the mystery will be revealed. There's a battery compartment here, but like many battery compartments on toys and things, it's been chewed out, but this is the giveaway. There was a reservoir for fluid here. But sadly, because this bike's had some fun, the reservoir's actually punctured through there, because it's like the back of the bike was getting scraped up. That's a sticker under this scooter here, Hunter Leisure. Hey, do you remember that name? Made in China. And if this was in better condition, I would actually do this one up and keep it, but sadly, I think it's a little bit too far gone. Now let me explain what this is. I dare say some of you have worked it out. It's actually a bubble blower. There would have been bubbles blowing out the back of this as you were riding your scooter down the road. How awesome is that? I've opened it up so I could take a look at how it works. Just noticing spiders running from this. It's a perfect spider home inside here. That's the battery compartment. That was the fluid reservoir underneath. Of course, it's got a bit of plumbing that's broken away, which gets fed up into a pump here. There's an impeller here which would be blowing air. Yes, and there's an electric motor that powers it all. It's a very crafty little bubble machine, that one. The way it creates the bubble is quite clever. I've seen this in one of the knockoff Thomas toys. This shaft here is powered here. That's like a universal joint done with a bit of plastic. And then at the back here, which forms a bubble, there's a thing that spins around there right at the end where I've got my thumb in a sense. So yeah, it's too bad that this has been knocked around. It's a little bit too far gone to repair, but it is a very nice bubble machine. So who's going to own up to owning one of these fancy bubble-blowing Thomas & Friends scooters? I think that's an awesome idea. I don't see enough of that sort of fancy stuff. Very nice Thomas scooter, and very different to my son's one. Well, it was a sunny day until the clouds came over. If I show you this much of the next item, do you know what this is? Just let me get some of that muck off. There we go. It's a Thomas & Friends push bike. I found this on the rubbish pile, so it was an absolute freebie for me, and it's in okay condition. This is the foamy bit on the handlebars. It's a little bit sun affected. That's what the seat was saying every time you hopped on the bike. I don't think this is from that many years ago. The way I gauge the use of a bike is I look at the tyre, just see how much is worn on the tyre. I think the main thing with this is it's just all mucky and yucky. There's a bit of a fancy one. I've had that system there where it goes down here. Do you know the system at all? And then there would have been a section that went in here, so Mum and Dad could steer the bike for you. It's a nice bike. It wouldn't have been the bottom of the range. It looks like it's a bit of a ritzier model, and it's very Thomas & Friendsy. I was trying to find a year date on this. I don't think this is very old. To me, that's like the more recent artwork. I can see there's some rust setting up here between the spokes. It's got flat tyres. There are bits and pieces that are loose on this. Because it's been at my place, I can see there's spider webs and things setting up in this bike. But one of the things I don't like about this bike is when you pick this up, man, is it a heavy item. It's really heavy up the back here. I'm not into children's bikes that are this heavy. Maybe that sticker there is a way of gauging how old this is for the fact it says Great Race. So who out there is going to own up to owning a spectacular Thomas & Friends bike like that? Well, the next three items all have a very similar story, even though that is one from a different franchise. They're all picked up from the rubbish piles, and I think those two Thomases there are fairly similar. This first one here, it is heavily sun affected. I dare say that would have been red at one stage. Even the blue has been washed out. It's got two buttons here, and it's got batteries underneath we're going to take a look at in a sec. There are spider webs all over this. It has a union section here. I think these connected to something else. But I'm not that sure. And if we take a look under here, woo, there's a 2005 licensing date. I remember when I picked this up, it was totally full of spider webs and things. That's the worst thing about these toys. There's plenty of areas here where spiders can set up nests, and especially at my place, well, it's a spider's best friend, isn't it? There's batteries in there. Would have been a sound maker. It's a shame it's so sun faded. It really has been trashed. Although I don't think it's had that much play because I can't see that much biffo on Thomas. They're the buttons that would have played some sort of tune. I dare say his dome doesn't do anything, but that bit there spins. It's got holes in it, which I don't know what that means. And if we drift across to our next model, which is sort of similar, okay, there's the back of it there. Something must have connected in there. There's something missing there, although this has got 4 buttons. This one was making a sound before, now it's not. It looks like it had something here, which has been snapped off. There's the same sort of feature there at the chuff chuff area. And I believe it's the same style of face. There they are side by side. It was that one there we looked at first, and this is the one we're looking at now. Heavily sun affected. That would have been a nice brilliant red at one time. That would have been a nice blue as well. It's a shame when the toys go like that, and I can see there's actually spider activity here. A little baby spider running up there. That's the problem with these toys, they get spider infested. I'd hate to think what's underneath there. In fact, I don't like what I see going on there. Just let me grab something quick. I've got this really good way of dealing with spiders, and it's like that. If there was a spider there, it wouldn't be there any longer. In fact, I think I just saw one on Thomas's face. Okay, it's sorted. Well, I can actually see there's been batteries in there. Look like a brand name. Won't say the brand name. I've got a theory about that flame. I think I can possibly rejuvenate a bit of that faded plastic. It's worth a squirt, it may work. Let's take a look if I can get some colour back. It's made of smoky, I can't see any extra colour. In fact, this thing is infested with spiders. I could just see a spider here. You see it there? Let's sort it out. Good night, sister. Ain't gonna survive that, I can guarantee you. No way. Well, there's one thing I'm certain of, that spider is no longer. Poor old Thomas, wow, he isn't looking as cheery as he normally does. Oh, look at that there. That's a horror movie scene, isn't it? Thomas's face is on fire. That's certainly not a Thomas facelift. Thomas is not looking happy at all. I had to put him out, he's wasted. And apart from the fact that Thomas has lost his face, the downfall of these toys is always the fact that the sun kills them. The sun takes out all their colour and makes them very brittle. Let me just push this aside for a second. Thomas is down, and I'm going to compare this Thomas here to this Wilson Chuggington that I found also on the rubbish piles. Quite amazing when you see those two together, in a sense opposing franchises, and I've often said on my channel, Chuggington have always represented their toys very nicely. To me, that's a spectacular version of Wilson. It's got enough there to make you realise who it is without distorting it too much. Looks like the back of a chugger, doesn't it? It's got some nice wheel detailing as well. Look at that. I mean, that's what I think looks far superior than what you're getting on the Thomas & Friends toy here, which really, I mean, give me a break, guys. It looks more like the way Mavis is set up. You don't really see his wheels properly, and also for the fact that the way that they've rendered Thomas, it's quite abstract indeed. But sadly, like those Thomas toys, the downfall of Wilson here is the fact it's been left in the sun. It would have been a totally awesome toy in its day. Mind you, I don't really think it's that old. Maybe I should try and find a date on this. It's up there, it's actually very hard to read. It's 2011 learning curve. I hope that was seen. It's hard to see when it's red against red. You know, awesome toy, but what I should show you is the current version of the Thomas sit-on toy train, which has actually morphed a fair bit since we saw ones like that. And like a magic show, Wilson has disappeared, and I have popped on here the latest form of Thomas Trax Ride-On. This is a very, very clever change, because in this toy, apart from having the more modern face and it's doing the determined look, hope that's determination, we've got two toys to play with, and in fact it's like a style of playset that is incorporated in this toy for the fact that the seat folds out and there's like a little racing game. And if I push the buttons there, I'll get into DMCA trouble. It makes train sounds and bell sounds and chuff-chuff sounds. I think this is a very interesting change in the way they've done these toys. I like the face in this, but in particular I like the fact you get a Percy and Thomas along with the Ride-On train. Mind you, that is a very strange Thomas and Percy as well. It's like a plasticated version of Thomas Wooden Railway. We've got some details missing. The sticker on the top there looks like it's coming off. I better push that down. And there's no coupling on this toy train. As for thinking of my Thomas collection, and in particular the trash Thomases there, which have been heavily sun affected, I don't think there's any reason to keep these. There's too many pieces broken off these. They're not really in that nice a condition, especially the animal who put a flamethrower to Thomas's face there. In my collection, I'd much rather prefer to have just a couple of nice pieces like that one. Apart from controlling spiders, the flames can give a really, really great look to Thomas there. Look at that face. That's the stuff of Thomas & Friends nightmares. I know, you want to see that new Thomas out of box? Well, so do I. It's actually a very nice looking Thomas there. It's got a very cramped cab. What I do like is for the fact that we see Thomas's wheels there. That's very nice, isn't it? We crawl around the front. We see he's got his lamp detailing there. It's got that determined face. Of course, it comes with the two toys. It doesn't steer, but if I push the buttons, it'll make DMC sounds for me. But the best feature, and here it is for real, is this raceway that folds down, and you set your trains here, and you press go. I think that's a very, very clever idea. Whoever thought of that deserves a pay rise. Now, I've seen a couple of these styles of toys in the Thomas & Friends lines. I think this is one of the nicest looking. I'm sure you're going to have your 5 cents about this toy here. But I tell you what, it is a vast improvement on what was getting around before, like the ones you saw in this video. Well, I should give this collection video a bit of a proper end, and I might get a bit ranty here because there's a couple of things that I want to point out. Especially now that I've watched this DVD. Or maybe I should say I've watched half of the film because I sort of fell asleep. Visually, it is stunning to look at. The detailing on the trains and everything beautiful. But the James bit at the start really annoyed me. He sounded like Diesel 10. Henry Crash was fine at the start. I loved it. The drift away from Sodor is curious because when we looked at the activity table, I showed you this part here. And there's Sodor Island. And I think Vickerstown Bridge will be roughly where my thumb is. Sodor Island isn't a real island, but it is next to the mainland, which is a real place. The stories seem to be drifting across the mainland a lot these days. I suppose it really, Misty Island was one chance to get off Sodor Island. It seems like the stories like to get away from the island now. I wonder how much longer that's going to occur. Now, when I watched the film, one thing I'd say is I saw a lot of the rolling stock had faces, and it made me go and look at the toys that I had down in my garage here. All different sorts of eras and stuff, some epic looking toys. And if I get a Thomas Adventures Thomas connected to the few bits of rolling stock that I've got with Thomas Adventures, well, to me that rolling stock isn't quite cutting it. The one thing I noted about this film was I like to see them to slap a face on just about everything they could. And in semi-recent times, there was a shock horror that Henrietta starts to become a major character of sorts. And what I would say is, what I noticed, there seems to be very much an inconsistency of what gets faces and what doesn't, and what should have faces and what shouldn't. If we go back in time, back to when Erdl were making their toys, this is what a troublesome truck looked like. It had the right sort of face, it had nice detailing. It looked really, really nice. Maybe the only fault with these was the coupling system and little tiny wheels on them, but hey, this was as good as you're going to get, and even today this stands up as being a totally awesome piece of rolling stock, but sadly we do not see this in the Thomas Adventures toys of today. Maybe I should do a thing where I take the top of this off here and attach it to one of these here. I think then Mr. Mattel might have some ideas. Then we sort of have a take and play era. This is actually take and play. It is Mattel 2009. Okay, now I've only got one piece of rolling stock like this. It's a troublesome truck, a rocking one with a face. So to have this sort of thing, even back then, was actually fairly difficult. It's a bit like the importance of slapping faces on things. All of a sudden, well, it wasn't important. Although in the movie I just watched, they loved to seem to slap a face on every single thing that moved. And then I can show you some Tomy troublesome trucks, and these are quite awesome, but all they were was a sticker on the front there. There's a couple of different designs. Nobody ever complained about these. But, you know, sadly, it's the sort of thing you just do not see today in that style of train. Mind you, Mattel did make this toy here. This is from the classic Trackmaster era, so it's after Tomy, and that's one of the better troublesome trucks that I've got, but it's almost like a flash in the pan. These things didn't last too long, and the importance of putting little faces on things seems to be diminished. This here's Trackmaster 2 rolling stock. Boring. You only had a face. I've just watched the DVD where there was faces and characters slapped on everything, not seeing it in the toys. And let's not forget Thomas Wooden Railway. Okay, well that's an earlier version there of a troublesome truck, Thomas Wooden Railway. There was a time when we used to get collector's cards with it. That was when Learning Curve had it. Yeah, wouldn't we like to go back in time, hey? And then the troublesome truck transformed to more the CGI face. There's nothing wrong with that. But at least it's got a face, but sadly we just do not see enough of it. And there's one more that I'll show you when it comes to troublesome trucks, and it's one that I've had, well, around for a little while. That's the Hornby one, which is much different to the first one they had. They had their first troublesome trucks very much based off the drawings that you saw in the books, the Railway Series books. I've got those at the moment. I can't find them. They're in the bottom of a container somewhere. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with what Hornby have produced here. That's what we want to see. We want to see faces slapped on everything. And I should also add that Bachmann also did excellent troublesome trucks as well. I think they had 3 variations of it. Now, if you're going to slap faces on things, you need to slap them on the right direction, and maybe someone knows where this is going. Got a couple of toys here. Yes, back in the good old days of Erdl, There's a paper face turtle there. Ooh, nice and rare. Imagine how expensive that is on eBay. I've got Toad there. Hey, you notice what Toad has got no face here, but he's a brake van. He has his face on the back, okay? Well, under the great wisdom of Mattel when they're doing their dumb magnets, we got a Toad that came out looking like this. Dun, 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 dun. Well, that's a great idea. Let's put Toad back to front. And because they were dumb magnets, it may have worked if it were smart magnets which work both ways. If you try to spin Toad around and you connect him up to Thomas here, uh-oh, something's going wrong. And I think it's funny because I remember watching these in the store and nobody was really buying these. They were major dust collectors. I'm not sure whether it was because it was Toad or the fact that he ran the wrong way. Well, anyway, I'm going to get lots of trouble now. I'm sure you'll have your say about where things should go. Actually, there's one more troublesome truck I haven't showed yet. And it's these ones here. I forgot about these. Sorry, little guys. Thomas Minis, hey? Now, it took so long to get rolling stock on the Thomas Minis things. I think everyone thought, oh, they must have forgotten that the fact that these trains actually do things on the railways. They are useful when they've got rolling stock. And we started to finally get things like this. But to me, it was almost like a pure afterthought. Thank goodness I remembered to do the Thomas Minis. Anyway, I think it's a fantastic movie. I very much like the start sequence in that film there. And I do like the fact they slap faces and everything, but it's a shame the toys don't emulate what we see in the films. Okay, what I really want to really finish off with is these toys here, which came with this wonderful Thomas ride on them. This is shot like months and months after the other bit, if that makes any sense. If I press go here, watch what happens. Go! Go! Now, these two guys here are very curious. Of course, there's Percy there. And of course, there is Thomas. Now, what you probably can't tell is, well, this is all plastic. And when I first saw these, I thought, oh, okay, they must be moving to turn all the Thomas Wooden Railway into plastic. That's the first thing I thought of. Noting that there's no magnets or anything on these, they are quite unusual, and that's nothing wrong with that, because it's another new Thomas to my collection. You can see where they've added stickers on, sort of, you know, semi-okay. Some stickers are nice and some aren't. The faces on them, I call them just the modern CGI face in a sense. Nothing wrong with that. And underneath there, well, it just has a copyright thing there, 2016 Ghislaine Thomas. So these toys are really specially made for, well, that toy up the back there in a sense. They come running down these tracks here and they do a bit of a crash and bash. To show you a Thomas Wooden Railway up against that Thomas there, okay, well, they're sort of the same size, aren't they? There's a lot of things you could say are sort of similar, but there's actually quite a few differences as well. Now, one of the most peculiar differences, and let me just clear away some of these classic toys, is what these toys don't fit onto. And this starts to come back to what makes or breaks a toy. Why is Thomas Wooden Railway one of the all-time great little Thomas toys to have? Because, well, it fits on Thomas Adventures Track, it fits on Take and Play, it fits on Trackmaster 2 Track, I could bring out many more, and also fits on its own track, Thomas Wooden Railway. So let's start taking a look at these plastic fantastics, and I got to ask myself, why didn't that ride-on toy come with Thomas Wooden Railway toy trains, which is, I dare say, the standard. Well, Thomas Wood will be coming in soon, won't it? Let's see what track system these toy trains play on, because I'm sure children will try and run them down their own tracks. Okay, Thomas Adventures, and you can see it doesn't fit, it's too small. Thomas Take and Play, which a lot of children will still have. That's a no, it doesn't really want to fit down that track. Okay, it's going to only frustrate you. That's a no. Thomas Trackmaster 2, which would be a very popular track system, a no. Okay, it doesn't want to run inside those tracks there. I suppose it'll get caught. You'll get one wheel caught in there, and now it's adhered to the track. Boring. Ugh, go away. Okay, Thomas Wooden Railway, and this is the one I thought, well, if you're going to run on anything, you're going to run on Thomas Wooden Railway, the all-time track classic standard thing people have. And look at this. It's too wide, it doesn't want to go. I mean, how frustrating is that? So I was thinking, you know, you can sort of get cranky about this. So you can sort of say, well, it's only a toy, Leo. Who's going to care? In fact, there's a bit of a Sticker Friday going on in Percy there. Really, all these toys are good for is a bit of random play, which goes like this. And maybe you can have your 5 cents about it. Okay, go! Whoa! And in a silly and most addictive way, you start doing this and you keep wanting to do it, don't you? Okay, go Thomas, go! And Percy, whoa! Now, I'm not a rocket scientist and I don't understand how the toy industry works, but I think the reason why we don't get one of those of that toy is for the fact the people who make this toy, well, it's not Mattel, because sort of Mattel make all those other toys. And if we take a look on the back here, we get to see who makes this toy. So that read there says to me it's made by Moose Mountain Toy Makers Limited, a subsidiary of Jakks Pacific. So I don't know whether Jakks Pacific has got links to Mattel. The toy industry is quite often interweaved, the toy companies that is. Nevertheless, that is a fantastic toy. Please don't get me wrong there. It is just quite peculiar that we get these toys here when I think what really would have worked is something like that. It's always interesting to get out the toys and you start comparing them over time and how things have changed for the better or for the worse. You know, I think a lot of people would say, well, can we go back to these times here? Maybe with a bit of a better coupling system. Hey, you know what? The new Thomas film, it's not too bad at all. It's lavishly detailed and it's a shame we just don't see that coming across in the toys. That's weird. G-rated. It says some scenes may frighten young children. Well, if the Journey Beyond Sodor gets a rating like that, well, there's hope for Shed 17 yet.